This is another video about the changes that I made to the waterfall chart. It took a long time, so I'm making probably more videos than I really need to make. But what we're going to do is talk about things like this, where we have, if I press Shift Control V, that's the way to do this, and continue to make a graph. What we have is switching from a positive to a negative. That sort of stuff is just simply not easy. Okay, and then we can do all of our adjustments and all that. I'm going to exit the program. The other thing, sometimes when we have, it's a similar type of problem when we just have a negative number that keeps getting worse and worse. And then we have some offsetting positive numbers, and I'm going to comment on what's so difficult about this. Now, if it's a straight negative or a straight positive, you've always got positive or no negative numbers. It's no big deal. It's when it crosses the axis that's when it gets really difficult. All right, so those are some of the issues now. To introduce the issues a little bit, I clipped just recently. I mean, I should clip a lot more. I'm going to clip some more, but this is kind of a typical graph. This is so easy to do. Just positive, always positive, and if you've got some negatives, changing to some positives, and if you don't have labels, it's no big a deal. Getting some labels and putting a 0 here, that's starting to get a little tricky. Here, getting the red in negative, green in positive, a subtotal or a total chart. I don't know why this is, I don't even understand this. This is supposed to be an easy chart, but it's not. Here's some negatives, and you put the negatives, you put the numbers below the negatives. Those are the hard parts, not just getting the basic thing right. Okay, just to make sure. Somebody commented, oh, it's pretty easy. And if you want to see some simple examples, you can see them. If we've just got positive increments, so this is our base value, and then it goes up by 15, 10, and 55, we make an accumulative thing. Oops, I've got my, if you want to see some of the programming using this R1, C1, whatever it is, I can help it. So all we do is make an accumulated number, and this is our input, which has a base and then an increment, and then we put our base is just our cumulative number. It says use cumulative, and then increment is just these increments here. All right, so that's pretty easy, when it gets difficult, and then it's not so difficult to do a negative, of course, either. I didn't mean to suggest a basic negative is difficult. Once you get these, you gotta unfill the data points or whatever, and do all of that stuff. Okay. Well, whatever. You know. Okay, you got to do all that stuff. All right, and then you can do the same thing over here. Whoops, oh shoot, oh, sorry about that. You can do the same thing over here where you, this time if it's negative, it's a little more difficult. You still use the accumulative, but you use the absolute value. And then you do the same kind of thing with taking this out. Now when you switch it to a negative, I can't figure, unless I'm missing something. I've tried it all different ways. Tried to make it simple. You have to kind of put two things on the same bar and then switch it over. And can you start imagining if it goes negative, positive, negative, and if you could keep going to be negative, then it gets a little more difficult. So that's what I'm going to show you. Okay, so we start with some examples. I kind of showed you, I think, the basic example here. This is where you put the absolute value in put the changes in. No big deal. Okay, Shift Control V, make the graph. We'll do a tiny little bit of formatting on this graph because I changed this around just a little bit. And of course you can see all of the programming, no secrets here. No trying to put private crap or anything like that. Okay, so if we change the bar width, we can make that bigger. If we want to make the labels bigger, we can make those bigger. If we want to bold the labels, we can do that. If we want to add a little more space in the labels, we can do that. So now we can make the labels even bigger if we want. Okay, that seems to be a big deal to make the labels big. If we put a title, we can make the title bigger, and we can change the title name and put basic graph with positive and negative. No big problems here, but you know, it's still getting all those labels right, and all that is a little bit tricky. Okay. All right. Let's. Okay, and the rest of these are similar. Now, if you want to do this one and change the IRR around a little, this is another one. Okay. Okay, this was a big deal to get this to work. I shouldn't be waiting. I should have turned the video off, but I guess I'm talking enough. So this is a IRR kind of movement. Let's do the same thing. A couple. Okay, make the labels a little bigger, and then space them out a little bit bigger. Okay, and then maybe we want to also change the X scale and make the X scale a little bigger. That's a little too big, and what you can't see me doing is I'm clicking the Enter key and then the slash key to make them bigger, smaller. Oops. Okay, and then let's bold it maybe. All right, so that's a kind of an IRR distribution. Again, that's basically positive and negative. No big deal. Okay. Now, if we wanted to, oops, before I do that, here's what I wanted to show you. Now, since these are all, again, you'd make this right in your own model. We have this debate about the Y scale. I don't know why the Y scale is criticized, having a Y scale. Maybe don't really need it, but if you wanted to change the kind of base or change any of the numbers, you can do that. Okay, and it changes it and puts it on. This was a pain to do. Okay, this just changed the scales. Okay, now let's do the hard one. Okay, and I'm going to acknowledge that all I can say here is there are going to be a couple of examples. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. When I do this one, okay, and I'm debating about making a change, but this is where we switch from a positive to a negative. Okay, first issue you'll have is, do you want to keep a line right here where it's the 0, and then it would be beautiful to have a line here and have these things on the bottom. Okay, maybe somebody can help me with that one. I'm wasting your time by making them wider and larger. Okay, and bolder, and spacing the labels off. But at least I showed you that all works. And here is my difficulty. Okay, is that this one, I had to put this negative on the top instead of the bottom. Couldn't really get that one. So when we change from a positive to a negative, it gets kind of tricky. If you would like to change the scales now, and let's put the X scale at the maximum, and then increase the size of it. The problem is you don't see the zero line, so there's a criticism here. It says don't use these grid lines, but you can put them in. Now, when you put them in, it doesn't get exactly to 100, so maybe you can go and try to adjust the minimum or the maximum scale. So let's make the minimum scale minus 50 maybe, and go and make the maximum scale. I'm just pressing sixes, and then I, and then 100. You can kind of play with that. And then here's the bad news. It still didn't put a line at 0, which is what I wanted to. So let's take the grid lines away. Okay, well, whatever. All right. Let's go and do another one. Okay, these are kind of normal decline ones. Well, let's do this one because I'm just going to show it to you. I won't waste your time with the formatting, okay? But this was kind of a pain. And this is a case where it switches from positive to negative, and after it switches from positive to negative, we keep having more negative signs, and then we get our final negative. And these ones I put at the top instead of the bottom. If you're really concerned with that, you show me how to figure it out. Okay, and okay, just press enter a couple of times. Let's do another one. I think I've shown you this one before. This is nothing. It's just a nice one that they show in that graph. If you want to kind of make these in order, that's what one of the suggestions is to make the biggest ones first, and then the smaller ones and negative ones, and have them all work the same way. Okay, and all right, enough of that. Okay, the downside case analysis. This is kind of what I wanted to show. I think this is a good one. Yes, this one should have it. So this is a percentage again, and we want to see what happens in the base case to the downside case, and it's certainly the case that you can have a negative number in the downside case. So again, this is what was not working before, and as I was having my classes half the time, I'd try to show you one of this stuff. I'd run into a switching from a negative to a positive, and it wouldn't work. Okay, and then we have some changing signs where we let's negative test. I think this one works still. Okay, I'm just making a whole bunch of examples. All right, I think this one, it has a negative and it crosses the x-axis, but then it goes positive after that, and I had to put these on the bottom now instead of the top. Sorry about that, but at least we can get it all to work. Okay. I suppose you could delete these numbers, but they seem to be very popular to have these numbers all working. So that's the second video that explains the waterfall chart. Okay, enough of that.